what is Outside of Fashion?
So essentially, it's a fashion brand focused on design for longevity, and of course, with that, hand in hand, we're concerned with sustainability and also working in an ethical way. I started the business actually just over 10 years ago now, so we were really in that sort of first wave of businesses, trying to evolve the fashion system at that time in the UK. Yeah, we focus on producing women's wear in a sort of timeless, classic style, but with a gentle nod to trends, and it's really focused on versatility.
Why is sustainability important?
Well, I think the simple answer is that we only have one planet to live on, and currently we are destroying it. Sustainability, is about more than just the fashion industry. It's a whole kind of globalized system that needs to be evolved and changed. But, as my training was in fashion, when I sort of learned about the challenges that we face, I sort of chose to use my fashion practice as the place, try to work towards a more sustainable future, because that is my my specialism. But I think it's also important to be aware of the fact that there are other industries that have a part to play as well.
How hard is it to source sustainable fabrics?
So I definitely say it's easier now than it was 10 years ago when I started. 10 years ago when I started, it was really very niche, and there were only a few places that I could find to go to source the materials that I needed. So when I started the brand, I used organic cotton and hemp silk, and then I started quite soon after that using bamboo and merino wool and organic merino wool as well, where possible. And those are still a lot of the fabrics that I continue to use. But what's really exciting is now there's more and more innovative fabrics coming through. So I think anyone starting a brand now has a much easier time of it. I mean, if you look at exhibitions once a year, for example, there's Sustainable Angle. They do a special expo in January every year, and then even at Premier Vision September, they always have a special area for kind of these smart textiles. So I think it's much easier now than it used to be.
So you're saying at Outside of Fashion is ethical fashion that should look like everyday fashion. What does this mean?
When I launched the brand 10 years ago, obviously we were in a very sort of different climate. So it was 2009. It was a time when a conversation was very different with regards to sustainability and ethics in fashion. It was still a time when I said to people, oh, it's an ethical fashion brand, and they were like, oh, ethnic? And I was like, no, something different. And so at that time, that's when I sort of developed this tagline. It was this idea to just challenge a little bit, that why should ethical or sustainable be separate, So my idea was kind of like, well, you shouldn't be able to tell by looking at a garment whether it's ethical or sustainable. It should just be beautiful or fun or well cut or contemporary or timeless or whatever it is that you're looking for in fashion. And it's really more about this idea of the fact that sustainability should just be the norm. I think also, unfortunately, especially 10 years ago, there were these associations that if something was made ethically or sustainably, it was going to be a brown sack or a dress made of leaves or something, So it was also to kind of challenge that idea. I don't really use that tagline anymore because I think the conversation has moved on so much. But nevertheless, kind of the point still stands that I don't think, in a way, big brands that start doing sustainable collections, why are they just doing one collection, right? Why can't just everything they do be working towards sustainability?
So I know that you've visited Asia quite a lot. How has this affected the way that Outside of Fashion is run today?
Maybe some of the background to that is that I had studied fashion and I'd worked for sort of independent and small brands. I then went to work for some, I guess kind of conventional high street brands in the UK. And I did a lot of the kind of liaison with the factories that would be Far East or in India or Mauritius. But I never went to those places until I took some time out and I went traveling. And actually, I think this is something that's really important, is that there is this big separation between kind of where we interact with fashion and where it's made very often. And I think spending time in factories abroad, you really understand firsthand the challenges that people face in other countries. And so that really helped me to work with my factories, I think, in a much more positive and productive way. So I think it enabled me to kind of have a lot more empathy and also to kind of understand the different landscapes that these factories might be operating in, whether it's kind of the politics or the laws that are in place or just even the climate. But yeah, I think having visited these other countries and actually having that first-hand knowledge has helped me to be able to work with my factories, to get the high-quality product made as well as to have the ethics in place.
Outside of Fashion has factories based in the UK, India and Macedonia. Why are they based there, and what is produced in each factory? Because I know they're in very different countries.
Basically, when I started, I was just working with one facility in India. And then over time, as I started to diversify the product, I had to look for other skills. So basically, each factory has a different skill and access to different fabrics. Because initially, that was something I was really conscious of. Is in the fashion industry, it's very common to kind of buy fabric in one part of the world, ship it all the way to another part of the world, and then you make something there. But then maybe you get buttons for somewhere else, and then you make it, and then it's sent again somewhere else. So there's a lot of kind of transportation involved just in making the things initially. It's something I've tried to look at. It's not perfect. It's very much a work in progress. But for example, in India, India's one of the biggest producers of organic cotton. So I make all my organic cotton shirt styles in India. And I work with a very small kind of, I wouldn't even call it a factory really, to be honest. It's more like a kind of a group of tailors that work together. The woman that I met when I was in India. In Macedonia, I work with a small family-run factory there. And they make a lot of the tailored wool styles that you see on my website. Again, they have that specific skill, and they're based sort of within Europe, so at least it's minimizing the transportation, because my wool fabric's coming from Italy. And then in London, I normally do the sort of jersey styles, and I use fabric that I source from a UK supplier.
I understand from past conversations we've had that you're working to evolve the curriculum of sustainability in Dubai. First things first, why did you choose Dubai as the place to make these conversations happen?
Basically, I am currently working at the Dubai Institute for Design and Innovation, and it's a new interdisciplinary design university here in Dubai. They're teaching design in the broadest sense, and there is one concentration around fashion, which is what I'm leading here. And the original curriculum actually came from Parsons, who for me have been real pioneers in terms of evolving fashion education. But yeah, essentially, over the years, running my own business, and I've always, or at least over the last 10 years, at the same time as running my business, I've been teaching part-time at various universities in the UK. And I'd say about kind of 3 years ago, I just, started to feel that even through having my brand, there's only so much change that I can affect. And it just became more and more obvious to me that actually the way that we train the next generation of designers is, for me, where I feel I can actually make the biggest impact. And so that's what really attracted me, especially to DIDI, as we call it, because they're starting a brand new design school. So we have the scope to actually be really brave and experimental with our curriculum. I'm not just doing one sustainability project with the students. Every single project that they do, the whole curriculum, the basis is sustainability. So it's one of their learning outcomes for every single project. So we're really experimenting with kind of, okay, what if we train designers to take sustainability as a given? They have to do it. They have to understand the materials they're using. They have to know the impact, and they have to think strategically about what they're creating.
What is the future of fashion for you personally or as a brand?
For me, it's quite simple. We know that, I think it's sort of common knowledge at this point, at least with people in this sphere, that, we need to change the fashion system. The current fashion system is broken, and it doesn't work for sustainability. So I think it's really about evolving and finding new ways of working. So I think that could mean that we rent more of our wardrobe, or we share more of it. I think we also need to be thinking more about repairing and really valuing and enjoying the things that we have. And I think you can also be looking at how we develop more slow, kind of smaller, localized systems for fashion design and making. I think there's actually so much potential, and it can actually be a really exciting time for fashion. But obviously, when you have to make big changes, that takes time. But I do think the future of fashion should be much more varied and a lot slower.